is going on, homies? My name is John Solo, and today I'm bringing you guys 113 more Star Wars facts, but today we're talking about the original trilogy. You guys seem to really enjoy my most recent Star Wars trivia video, which I found pretty surprising because it was about the prequels, so I figured some original trilogy trivia would be appreciated as well. I've actually done Secrets of Cinema episodes about episodes 4, 5, and 6, but because those weren't as high of a quality as I would have liked, and because they were all divided into smaller parts, I figured that if I redid them and added more facts to the list, then it would be enough for a whole new video. So, in addition to those original 75 facts that were almost exclusively about the production of the movie, I added 38 facts about the Star Wars universe and those who live in it. Now, this is a big list, but I promise you guys, we're gonna fly through it faster than the Millennium Falcon doing the Kessel Run. I got a good feeling about this. This is the only one out of the first 6 Star Wars films to be nominated for the Best Picture Academy Award and the first ever science fiction movie to be nominated for that award. Adjusting for inflation, this would be the second highest grossing movie of all time, right behind Gone with the Wind. Episode 4 was the first film to ever make over $300 million. At 121 minutes, this is the shortest of the first 6 Star Wars films. Sort of ironically, the film's director George Lucas was so sure that it would flop that instead of attending the premiere, he went on vacation to Hawaii with Steven Spielberg. This was originally supposed to be the only Star Wars movie. The subtitle A New Hope wasn't added until 1981. Believe it or not, Darth Vader only has 12 minutes of screen time in this movie. Harrison Ford deliberately didn't learn his lines for the intercom conversation in the cell block so it would sound spontaneous. That's what we call a method actor. Biggs Darklighter is Luke Skywalker's best friend. Luke Skywalker had met Ben Kenobi at least one time after Ben Kenobi dropped him off with his aunt and uncle, and one time before the events that took place in A New Hope. As a child, Luke got lost in the Tatooine wilderness and Ben rescued him. Chewbacca and Han Solo met when Han saved Chewie from slavery. Chewbacca also has a family of his own, a wife named Mala, a son named Lumpy, and a father named Itchy. I don't know how someone with an epic name like Chewbacca would decide on the name Lumpy for his son, but I digress. Wookiees have an extremely long lifespan. Chewbacca is over 200 years old when we see him in episode 4, which is considered to be a Wookiee's prime. James Earl Jones and David Prowse, who play the voice and body of Darth Vader respectively, have never met. Kenny Baker, who plays R2-D2, has said that often when the cast and crew would break for lunch, they would forget that he was in the R2-D2 suit and leave him in there. Some of R2-D2's arm extensions include welding tips, cutting devices, magnetic depolarizing leads, and clamps. These extensions are also almost all interchangeable, so they can be replaced with attachments specific to whatever task he's assigned. Dr. Evazan, the guy who starts the fight with Luke in the cantina, has a disfigured face from an incident with a bounty hunter. A bounty hunter was hired to kill the doctor after word got out that he was performing creative cosmetic surgery on his patients and leaving them disfigured. Because her costume didn't allow her to wear any underwear, Carrie Fisher's breasts were tattooed down with gaffer tape. She later joked in an interview saying, "As we all know, there's no underwear in space." A lot of people claim that George Lucas tricked Carrie into genuinely believing this, but if you know Carrie Fisher's sense of humor, you know that this is the type of joke that she would make. The band that plays in the cantina is called Figrin Dion and the Modal Nodes. Some of the instruments that the band plays are a plume sounder, a fanfare, a clue horn, and this weird thing. This is the only Star Wars film where Darth Vader's Imperial March theme isn't played because it wasn't even written at the time. Princess Leia and Obi-Wan Kenobi never actually meet. The closest they get to meeting is the lightsaber duel that she observes from afar. Once a year, all of the Jawa clans meet together in a giant salvage swap meet. They trade equipment, droids, and stories. Stormtroopers are disciplined to ignore casualties within their own ranks. This is why we never see them flinch or even react to any of their comrades dying. Dennis Lawson, who plays Wedge Antilles, is the uncle of Ian McGregor, who plays Obi-Wan Kenobi in the prequels. To those of you who are going to correct me on the pronunciation of McGregor's first name, just so you all know, you guys gave me like 4 different correct pronunciations last time, so I'm gonna continue calling him Ian. Despite not always acting like it, R2-D2 is many years older than C-3PO. The Millennium Falcon was constructed mostly out of junked car and airplane parts. According to the exhibit at the Smithsonian, the sound of a TIE fighter combines the squeal of a young elephant with the sound of a car driving on a rain-slicked highway. Oddly specific. The Tantive 4, Leia's ship that we see get captured in the beginning of Episode 4, is a Corellian Corvette. Corvettes blend in so anonymously with other space traffic that a lot of them have been converted for covert purposes like smuggling or rebel missions. A trait specific to Imperial officers is the support of the Emperor's policy to subjugate or dominate non-human species. Jando Dana is the rebellion general who identified the Death Star's weakness in the exhaust port. Probably one of the coolest and most interesting facts that I have on here, the proton torpedoes that Luke shoots into the Death Star's exhaust port were the only pair that he had aboard his X-Wing. That means that if he missed his shot, the rebels would have been completely wiped out. Cardboard cutouts were used for most of the crowd watching Han and Luke receive their medallions at the end of the film. On the remastered versions of A New Hope, they've been replaced with CGI. Finally, you guys, we have the fact that I found to be the most interesting about Episode 4. The entire original reason that Darth Vader was given a suit was because he needed a way to travel from his spaceship to Princess Leia's. How wild is that? It wasn't because he was disfigured, it wasn't because he needed it to survive through day-to-day life, it was because he needed a way to breathe when he traveled from spaceship to spaceship. This was the highest grossing film of 1980. It's also currently the 13th highest grossing film in North America, adjusting for inflation, of course. Episode 5 is the third highest grossing Star Wars film domestically, with an adjusted gross of over $780 million as of 2014. The previous two mentioned ranks were each one spot higher before The Force Awakens came out in December of 2015. Empire Strikes Back was voted number 3 on Empire's 500 greatest films of all time list in September of 2008. Darth Vader was ranked number 3 on AFI's list of 50 greatest villains. The sound of Darth Vader's shuttle door closing is the sound of an entire cell block in Alcatraz closing its doors at once, which is incredibly rad. Our favorite smuggler Han Solo is not a fan of either Tauntauns or the cold, but that didn't stop him from accepting the role of captain in the Rebel Alliance and stationing on Hoth. Solo also helped design the perimeter survey plan for Echo Base because he's an expert at seeing people before they see him, which is how he became such a good smuggler. The Rebels had to modify their weapons to function in the freezing temperatures of Hoth. AT-ATs are not climate controlled, so their pilots had to wear special insulated suits during the Battle of Hoth. Han Solo is the only non-Jedi/Sith to use a lightsaber in the original trilogy. In the asteroid scene, one of the asteroids is a shoe and another is a potato. TIE fighters are specifically offensive vehicles. They have no deflector shield or hyperdrive equipment, which makes the fighters incredibly agile but defenseless. This isn't a problem for their operators though, as TIE pilots believe that shields are tools of cowards. The game that Han beat Lando in to take possession of the Millennium Falcon is called Sabacc. The same game that lost Lando Millennium Falcon won him control of Cloud City. Having Han Solo frozen in carbonite was partly due to the fact that they weren't sure whether or not Harrison Ford would return to reprise the role of Han Solo in Episode 6. Harrison Ford actually wanted George Lucas to kill him off. Princess Leia's jumpsuit on Hoth is white to represent the fact that she is still the princess of Alderaan despite the planet no longer existing. As we see in Episode 4, the royal gowns that she wears are also white. Yoda's iconic manner of speech constructs sentences in object, subject, verb order. There are actually a few languages on Earth that use the same sentence structure. Most of them exist in the Amazon River Basin. A life-size Millennium Falcon was built for this movie for the first and only time, and it weighed 23 tons. Luke is upside down 3 times in this movie and uses the Force each time. The space slug that temporarily eats the Millennium Falcon can survive living in an asteroid because it digests the minerals from inside of it. it. Watch the lightsaber fight on Cloud City again and you'll notice that most of the camera shots aim at Luke. This is because during many of the shots, Bob Anderson, who was Vader's fight double, was not wearing the Darth Vader helmet as it made it difficult for him to breathe. After Luke loses his lightsaber, he travels back to Tatooine to the home of Ben Kenobi to construct another one. The lightsaber he constructs here is the same one that is shown to us for the first time at Jabba's palace, and it closely resembles Obi-Wan's. The reason that Tauntauns were chosen to be the mounts for the rebels on Hoth was because a lot of them were already living in the cave that became Echo Base. Although it's mentioned by name at the end of the movie, this is the only one out of the first 6 Star Wars films that doesn't have a scene on Tatooine. Tatooine is also the only planet that appears 5 times in the saga. Just like in other episodes, the rebels that we see in Episode 5 consist of not only volunteers like Luke and Biggs, but Imperial deserters. Just like someone else we know. Rebel soldiers receive basic training in multiple categories such as weapons handling, communications, and emergency medical relief. Many people believe that Yoda's entire name is Yoda, but his full name is actually Minch Yoda. The tank that we see Luke in after the Wampa attack is called a Bacta tank and is filled with something called synthetic chemical Bacta and is designed to heal deep flesh wounds. Director Irvin Kershner decided that for this movie, the rebels, the good guys, would speak with American accents, while the Imperials, the bad guys, would speak with British accents. This was to make the conflict more similar to the American Revolution. The book version of Episode 5 was released a month before the film was and didn't even try to cover up the big reveal that Darth Vader was Luke's father. As we all know, in every Star Wars film, the line "I have a bad feeling about this" is spoken, and in this movie, Leia says it. During his battle with Vader, Luke's right hand is severed and he loses it and his lightsaber. As part of the expanded universe, both his hand and his lightsaber were recovered, and the Emperor kept them as trophies. Later, the hand was used to create a clone of Luke that would also wield the lightsaber. The droid that treats Luke Skywalker after the battle at Cloud City is the same one that treats him after the Wampa attack. His name is 21B. Finally, you guys, my favorite fact about Episode 5, and a fact that to this day I'm still constantly correcting people about. A huge majority of Star Wars fans believe that the Wampa attack on Luke was used to explain real-life scars that Mark Hamill had after a serious car crash. This is partly true because Hamill did get into a serious car crash in 1977, but he had no visible scars by the time they started shooting Empire Strikes Back over 2 years later. If you're like my father and for some reason refuse to believe me on this, you can look up interviews where Mark Hamill talks about it himself. He also has no idea where the rumor came from. Just like the episodes before it, this was the highest grossing film the year of its release. Episode 6 was also the first film to gross over $20 million its opening weekend. By the end of its theater run, Return of the Jedi brought in over $250 million on a $32 million budget. Remember, if you don't think any of these numbers are impressive, this was back in the 1980s and I'm not adjusting for inflation. The scene with Jabba's sail barge was filmed in Yuma, Arizona, and the crew had a hard time avoiding the 35,000 dune buggy activists in the area. To try and preserve secrecy, the producers claimed to be making a horror movie called Blue Harvest with the tagline "Horror Beyond Imagination," and even had caps and t-shirts made up for the crew. Fake scripts were given to cast members who were thought to be likely to leak secret information to the media. The best part about this is that some of the fake information from those scripts was leaked to the media. For example, Lando was said in that script to be the last hope that Ben and Yoda were talking about in Episode 5. Darth Vader's footsteps were recorded in the underground tunnels underneath the Golden Gate Bridge to give them an ominous effect. Speeder bike pass-by sounds were created by splicing together sounds from a P-38 airplane. The Jabba the Hutt puppet took 3 months to build, cost $500,000 to make, and weighed over 2,000 pounds. According to the Visual Dictionary, Jabba eats 9 meals a day. The band that performs at Jabba's palace is called the Rebo Band and is named after Max Rebo, the Ortolian that plays the organ. Rebo's bandmates all have stage names that he's given them. My favorite is Droopy McCool. I'll be honest, after learning his name, Droopy McCool made it onto my list of my top 100 favorite Star Wars characters. The dancer that falls into the Rancor pit at Jabba's palace loses her top as she falls. That dancer has a name, Ula, and was kidnapped by Bib Fortuna and brought to Jabba's palace where she was taught to dance. Return of the Jedi was the first film to use THX. The fat guy that we see crying after the Rancor is killed used to train circus beasts, but became an outlaw when some of them escaped during a show and killed members of the audience. He was personally hired by Jabba the Hutt to take care of the Rancor, which is why he was so upset when it died. The idea for Princess Leia's gold bikini came about when Carrie Fisher complained to George Lucas that her outfits in the previous two films were too long and you couldn't even tell she was a woman. To this day, we're all very thankful for that. A fact that I find really interesting is that George Lucas had no idea that Boba Fett had become so popular, and he said that he would have given the character a much more memorable death if he had been aware of it. As part of the Star Wars expanded universe, Boba Fett actually does survive the Sarlacc pit and continues battling Han Solo and Luke for many years after the events of Return of the Jedi. Obviously, this is no longer canon, but it's still pretty cool. The Sarlacc pit, sometimes called a sand vagina, cocoons its victims when they fall in and absorbs their intellect. This is how Sarlaccs are able to sustain the digestion of their victims for thousands of years. I've learned that the nickname sand vagina is actually pretty appropriate for the Sarlacc pit that we see in Return of the Jedi, because that Sarlacc is a female. The male Sarlaccs are much smaller than the females, though still rather large compared to us humans, and live as parasites attaching themselves to the females. Insert Tumblrina feminazi joke here. Luke fighting on the sail barge is the first time that we ever get to see a lightsaber clashing with something that isn't a lightsaber. Before you bring up the Wampa and the incident with Dr. Evazan, remember that we don't get to see the lightsaber cut off those arms, we just see the aftermath of it. The little creature sitting in front of Jabba the Hutt's name is Salacious Crumb, and he is a Kowakian monkey lizard. Jabba first encountered Salacious when he discovered him stealing his food. Jabba actually tried to eat Salacious, but he thought the monkey lizard was funny, so he hired him as a court jester. In this movie, both C-3PO and Han Solo say, "I have a bad feeling about this." The Imperial Guard's weapon of choice is a vibroactive force pike. The guards use them to create lethal and very precise wounds. When I was younger, I always wanted to see these guys in action. It's such a shame. For this movie, Harrison Ford suggested to George Lucas that Han sacrifice his life to save his friends. George Lucas turned the idea down because he wanted Han to play a heroic part at the end of the film. Harrison Ford really just wanted to stop playing Han. Interestingly, George Lucas did consider killing off another character, Chewbacca. These specialized helmets that scout troopers wear have motion sensors and enhanced macro-binocular view plates that allow them to see energy emissions, night vision, and designated target magnification. Admiral Akbar's backstory is that he was once Grand Moff Tarkin's personal pilot and slave. Akbar's famous line, "It's a trap," was originally scripted as "It's a trick," but it was changed after a negative test screening. Chief Chirpa is the leader of the Ewoks, and he wears a Churi skull on his head. These skulls and teeth that Ewoks wear usually belong to the animals they've hunted, and they wear them as trophies. From an engineering perspective, both Death Stars were constructed pretty poorly because they did not have either safety or redundancy systems. When Wedge and Lando shot out the power regulator, the entire reactor exploded. A properly engineered power generator would have multiple backups and safety protocols to prevent such an occurrence. We could blame the explosion of the second Death Star on the fact that it wasn't fully constructed, but regardless, neither had that great of engineering. If you listen carefully during the scene where Darth Vader throws Emperor Palpatine down the Death Star shaft, you'll hear the only time that the Jedi theme plays over a shot of Darth Vader. This was to reflect his change from the dark side of the Force to the light. Finally, my friends, the fact that I found to be the most interesting out of the hundreds and hundreds of facts that I read for Return of the Jedi. If you guys have seen my recent Vader conspiracy theory, you may remember this. That blue explosion that we see after the Emperor is thrown down the Death Star shaft is the essence of the dark side of the Force. You know, for a while I wondered why throwing an old, decrepit old man down that shaft would have created such a massive explosion, and now I know why. The explosion wasn't from the Death Star, but the decrepit old man himself. And that, my homies, was 113 facts about the original trilogy. I hope you guys learned yourself something today. If you did and you enjoyed this video, make sure you let me know by commenting down below or hitting that like button. If you want to educate your friends on the Star Wars universe, you can hit that share button down below as well and share this video to either Facebook or Twitter. Sharing is an excellent and super efficient way of supporting the channel, and I appreciate anybody that does it. If you want to be notified every time I upload another video, you can hit that subscribe button down below. I upload at least 2 videos every single week, and one of them is always about Star Wars. And of course, the links to my Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter are in the description down below as well. Go give those a like or follow if you're interested in getting the inside scoop on the channel and my life. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate your support more than you know. In case you forgot, my name is John Solo, and I'll see you soon.